Hey everybody, I'm coming to you live from the rooftop of the Hotel Lucine in Galveston, Texas. You can tell I'm squinting, the sun's coming up. This was probably a mistake. It's going to be windy. There may be some traffic noise, so I apologize in advance for that. I would give you a tour, but I'm afraid to touch any of my shit right now because I've got everything the way I want it. So anyway, Sean, you're still at your place in Mexico there, it looks like?
Yeah, still at the nice humble house here in Mexico. It's actually finally stopped raining for a few days. It's supposed to be nice and sun. It's been like a very, very long rainy season. It's been torrential downpours and so much weather, and it'd be sunny and all of a sudden it just dumps like 20 centimeters or 6 inches of rain in an hour. Like it was a lot, but we're actually able to. I for the first time since we've moved into the house about a year or a month now. What did I say? A month. I finally set the hammock up, so that's kind of nice. I got a hammock going. Yeah, it's good. The weather's getting cooler. It's not as humid. You can go outside and do stuff in the middle of the day. You still sweat. Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's unbearable, or it's not like it's unbearable anymore. It still gets a little warm, but it's pretty good. So we're actually excited for today. We have a guest coming on our episode. We have my buddy Matt Crowe. I actually met him down here in Playa del Carmen, and we'll let him do a big intro of himself. But he's an angel investor, and then me and him have actually partnered up, and we're working on creating a company called the Conscious Coworking Collective, or just Conscious Coworking. And I'll let him explain, why he came up with the idea and what got him to think of creating this space and this community for a certain demographic of entrepreneurs and digital nomads. So we're going to be interviewing him about, his life story, about what got him into becoming an angel investor, his life growing up, the different companies they have. We're going to ask him for different strategies and tips for success, obviously, because it's the Strat show. We need to have some strategies in here.
Keep forgetting about that.
Yeah. We'll start niching into the strategies and stuff like that as we go on. The first few are just kind of like finding our way and our path, and we're gonna get down to a more strategic strategy show.
I'm excited to hear from him. I know you've been working with him for a while, so a lot of this information will be new to me. And of course, as we both have been digital nomads, seems like kind of a worn out term, but that's essentially what we all are, even though we're more kind of long term in places now. And there has been a gap of people that are a little bit older versus like the younger people that are just going around staying in hostels and everything else. There's definitely a different market for different things. Before he jumps on, how's the experience in Playa this time as opposed to before? Two different worlds down there, right? I mean, well, there's many different worlds. There's the party scene, there's the workout, the holistic, and all the health scene. Both of those can be a little much. Like some people could take the health stuff too far where you're like, all right, chill out. And then of course the partying can get a little over whatever too. You're no longer like kind of in the middle of town. You're out, you got a bigger house now with, you can work out there. You essentially wouldn't really have to leave. What's your experience now versus being in the middle of all the action to now you're kind of on the outskirts?
I mean, as far as like trajectory of life goes, it's a progression and a step that I wanted to get into, right? When I first came to Playa, it was after a year and a half of traveling, a year traveling with an ex-girlfriend, and then the last 6 months or so was by myself. So, it's just mainly just the two of us going little remote towns along Mexico. And then when we broke up, it ended up being, me by myself. And so when I first got here, I was like, oh my God, people, English-speaking people, women, booze, drugs. I was like, yeah. So I just went on a little bit of a rampage. So, and then as I, started to want to get more focused in on the business and getting, higher clients and just a better lifestyle, I ended up meeting my new current partner that I have now. It's definitely, it's a lot different of a turnaround, the way that it is living out here. And I like it. It's calmer. It's super quiet. I wake up every morning feeling good. I'm in bed by 10 o'clock almost every night. I think a late night for us now is midnight. And that's, because we're at a sound healing or we're doing some sort of retreat or something, we come back. So it's a lot better pace of a life. And it's I don't even miss drinking and partying anymore. I mean, I haven't had a drink in, I think 6 or 7 months now. It's been quite a while. And even when I go out, I go out to pubs every Sunday to watch football with a couple buddies. And then I'll get buckets of beer and drink and having fun. I'm just drinking water and getting a suero, which everyone doesn't know is just basically an electrolyte drink with lime and salt. And I don't even have any craving like, oh, I could go for a beer right now. Like it's kind of like a phase of my life that's passed.
Life's kind of in seasons. I went through different phases like that because everybody thinks it has to be all or nothing. If I'm going to stop drinking, that's got to be it forever. And there may be an occasion in the future where you have a couple drinks, but it's okay. It's not like you ruined your whole life, so things come in seasons. Sometimes I'll be super healthy for 6 months at a time. Then I'll go on like a blowout trip, and we talked about that before, how that can be beneficial to kind of get it out of your system. It just depends where you're at and what you want to do. And then maybe after a couple of years or after some time living there where you're at now, you could be like, hey, you know what, let's just go do something for a week where we're in the middle of all the live music and everything, and then you go back. I think people, when they're not looking at life in seasons like that, they're like, now I have to be healthy all the time, or now I'm in my
Yeah.
party, whatever. And it's like, no, you can bounce back and forth. Sometimes I don't do shit for a year, then I act like a complete moron for 2 months straight. So, you can't beat yourself up about it, though. It's not an all or nothing thing.
100%. And it's a difference between people that quit drinking and partying because they have an addiction and it's a problem and they're like an alcoholic, or they're doing lots of cocaine and heroin and meth or speed. And then it gets to a point where like, okay, I need to go into rehab and recovery. And like, there's no like, maybe I'll just try to be a non-addict for a year, and then I'll just do some heroin for a week and no, it doesn't work like that. So it depends on the person. It's like if you're an addict, which I 100% respect people that if you're addicts and you're clean, stay clean. There's no like going back into it for a little long. But if you just quit because you want to become healthier, like, I mean, I even talked to my partner about this too. Like, there's probably gonna be a time where I'm gonna have a few drinks again. It's not that I needed to quit. I just wanted to quit drinking for a bit. And even
sure.
actually, she mentioned she actually said she wants to try getting drunk again for the first time in like 4 years. Right. So
there's something to that, because I've done that, both things. I've been a heavy drinker, and then I've stopped for a while. There is something to be said about doing it again because it's fun. And then you also kind of remind yourself like, oh shit, maybe I don't want to do this. So, but it's like we said before, if you're away from something for too long, you forget what it feels like to why it feels good. Then you also forget like why it feels like shit after the facts. Hey, Matt, we're talking about drugs and alcohol. A good time to jump on.
That's a great topic to start talking about.
Yeah, man. But it's nice to meet you, man. We never actually met before. I'm going to jump to another seat here before the sun kicks my ass.
Where are you located, Lee?
Well, I spend summers in the Detroit area. But anyway, I'm in Galveston. John gave you a little bit of intro before you jumped on. I know you guys have the Conscious Coworking project going on. I know a little bit about it, but I purposely didn't get into a lot with Sean so that you could come on and kind of tell us a little bit about that and yourself. So if you want to just do a quick intro, let everybody know who you are and what you got going on.
So I'm Matt Crowe, and I am a entrepreneur. The fireworks in the background. Repeat entrepreneur. I sold my first company when I was young, around age 20. And that started my entrepreneurial path and journey. And I'm now 42. So started my first company in high school, so like 25 years or so. A few like little brief stints, like a consulting or a job here or there. But for the most part, I was just my own thing. And yeah, live in Mexico now, in Playa del Carmen, and have my fingers in a lot of different shit, which, as you guys know, as entrepreneurs, is always kind of par for course, of different interest projects and whatnot. But I definitely I had this, people hear me talk about this, but I had this spiritual awakening like 3.5 years ago. I took psychedelics for the first time. And that really took my life in a completely different path, especially of a path of being of service too. That has been like a really big theme where admittedly, I was a young guy who had success at a young age and a big ego. And that came to bite me a few times, from having these big financial ups and then big downs kind of thing, and making a lot of mistakes in that process. And both, I learned a lot and made a shit ton of money, but also lost a shit ton. Just kind of like took a different approach, which was a more authentic approach to business and entrepreneurship, and not just like in the money making game, which we needed money to survive and thrive and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
now, question for you now. I mean, again, you're free to share, not share what you don't want to, but do you mind me asking what was the spiritual awakening that you had, and what psychedelic was it that gave you this like realization of coming from a place of being of service?
Yeah, it's a good question. I was always, to be honest, afraid to take any kind of like hard drug, which it wasn't a hard drug. These are plant medicines, right? So, but at the time, my naive mind was like, oh, I don't, I'm too afraid. If I do that, I'll have some psychotic break or something like that, or get addicted to something or whatever it was. Yeah. And it was mushrooms. And I don't know, I still don't know what kind of strain specifically, which I'm very like interested in strain specific things now because of the different experiences. Yeah, it was mushrooms, and it was the craziest experience, like the craziest thing, because I had never in my life experienced any, and I had lived a big life too, like traveled all over the world and, fancy whatever, this and that, and done a lot, but nothing compared to that first mushroom experience of all the things that I had done previously to that. And I also was the first time that I saw God. And that was not like a big guy in the sky kind of thing. You know, it was like my version of what I could interpret at that moment in time of where I was on my spiritual journey, and like a higher purpose and a higher like meaning to life. Actually, it was also the first time I felt love too, like self-love, which was a big, as like I know a lot of, and I work with lots of entrepreneurs, you know, like many of them, even Steve Jobs, he came from a place of woundedness, you know, because he was an adopted child, right? So he was always trying to prove himself to people, right? And that was one of his things that also made him very successful too. But yeah, it was mushrooms, and it was crazy, and I'll never forget it. And yeah, it really set, like, it was a fork. I don't know if fork is the right word, but it was like the turning of the rudder of the ship, you know, that was going in the wrong direction for a long time, that finally, like, you know, moved it.
I really do feel like 100 years from now, hopefully sooner than that, people are going to look back on this time. Humans are, and it should be like a requirement that everybody has like a psychedelic experience. And again, it's not for, there's like a small percentage of the population that have like a psychosis, have a problem with it, but for the most part, I mean, shit, I've drank alcohol almost every day for 25 years. That's poison. So, you know, like, why is that legal and mushrooms are not?
Like, I had really bad depression for all the years before that and before now too, really crippling. And actually, my first like research into psychedelics was ketamine, when they were doing ketamine assisted therapy. And this was like 6 or 7 years ago for treatment resistant depression. So that's when I first started to like look at clinical studies and things that they were doing like at Johns Hopkins University, etc. Before now they're doing everything with like MDMA and, you know, ayahuasca and everything else that they're testing with people to cure, not just like a antidepressant of put a band-aid on, but actually cure depression or anxiety or all these like, you know, crippling things that really fuck with people's lives. And that was my initial interest. And I just was like too afraid, to be honest, to do it. And then finally one time my friends was like, hey, you want to do mushrooms? And I was like, yes, let's do that.
I've done mushrooms a lot in my life. I mean, the only like I would say spiritual awakening that I had was when I did Bufu, which is DMT, like pure extracted DMT from the frog. That brought me to a different universe, and I'll go on that story after. But like, I mean, from mushrooms, I don't think I've ever actually gotten that hallucinogenic seeing.
But how much have you taken? What's the most you've taken?
I mean, the thing is, those the times where I've taken the most mushrooms, I was also compiling it with other drugs as well. So it'd be on this festival rave, so doing, you know, some cocaine or some MDMA. So like,
I'm taking mushrooms and cocaine. That's a whole different situation. That's doing drugs, Sean.
Yeah.
Just FYI, we're talking about healing spiritual plant medicine here. Okay.
This is a past life. This is a past life.
Yeah.
God didn't want to grant me a vision at that point, I don't think.
Well, you're also too big. You probably need to eat the whole fucking plant. But anyway,
I got to eat the roots and everything, I think, just to feel it, probably. But I mean, moving away from the drug thing, I mean, it's amazing you had that opportunity to have that type of awakening, to be able to shift your trajectory of where you're going from being depressed and anxiety and bedridden, I'm assuming, and I don't think you said that, but like just clinically depressed, and now being in a path of giving and being of service, which kind of led you to the Conscious Coworking community that we've started up together. So you, me, and Andy have now partnered up together building this Conscious Coworking community. I haven't dove in too much on the podcast about it, but like, do you want to? I remember you told me the story as to where it came from, what you want to try and cure, and what the goal of this community was. You want to kind of dive into that a little bit and let us know, like, what made you want to start this? What made you want to build this community of people?
Yeah. So I moved into this new house in Playa, and it didn't have internet. The internet was shit. So I went and I was like not able to work really because it was just like a dead zone for my phone and the Wi-Fi wasn't working. So I went to a co-working space one day. So I was falling so far behind, and it was like 250 pesos. And I went in there and I worked a little bit, and I'm like, this sucks. It's like depressing and dreary and cold, and everybody's like on their headphones. What the fuck is this? And I had this nice house, and I'm like, well, why don't I just invite people to my house? That was it. And I put one post on Facebook, like, hey, if anybody wants to come and go work at my house at this nice place. And I got like 50 DMs. It was crazy. And so I realized like I was on to something with that. And I had this one event, which has turned into many events, and now over 800 people in this community, and growing with expansion plans to other cities and locations and potentially physical locations now too. But I've realized, like, looking back on it now though, Sean, I don't even know when we talked about this. The best businesses, you're solving your own problem. Like, the best businesses in the history of business is you're solving a problem that you have that many other people end up having too. And so for me, it was actually like, I didn't have a tribe. I was lonely. I actually really hated Playa. Like, I was there for the first 6 months. I was like, this sucks. I had a couple friends, Jose, been friends with for a long time, but I was like not integrated into the community. And what happened is, like, I developed this amazing tribe of meeting all sorts of cool people and learning things, like about DAC delivery as an example, which like is a game changer. Just little shit, that makes like living like when you have a home versus just living somewhere as a transient remote worker or on a nomad or a vacationer or whatever it is. There's a very different experience. And I've never been a fan of, actually, all the years that I've traveled and stuff, I prefer the slow travel thing, to like really immerse myself in a place versus just like a quick go see the tourist sites kind of thing. And now looking back, I realized that I solved my own loneliness. That's what happened, is that I was able to build a tribe, and then other people built a tribe, finding people that they share a connection with. And it's been crazy a while. Like, I had no idea. Honestly, it was just like, hey, why don't I just invite some people to my house? That was kind of it. And then it turned into this like whole, like, other people had the same pain point. And then I started to watch people like do projects together or build new friendships or date even, or learn things about things they didn't know, or be part of these little events where there's spiritual things happening, or little kind of mini conferences or something like that.
Mini conferences. Yeah. And I like how you said that. Like some of the best businesses are not just solving and curing a problem. It's solving and curing your own problem that others experience as well. I've always heard of the expression find a problem in the marketplace, come up with a solution. But I think it's more successful when it hits home for you as well. Like if you see a problem that
it's organic. That's what happened. It's like I had zero intention. Even now, I still sometimes get on the fence about it. Zero intention of like building a business, or it was just literally like of my be of service thing. That's it. It's like, hey, why don't I invite some people to my house? And I remember I put in the post, like, don't spend the money on a co-working space, like spend it on something spiritual for yourself or give it to somebody else, right? So like it was out of an intention of doing good. And when we do good things, I'm a believer that good things, come from that too. And I suspect that's why it hit a nerve and continues to grow, and we're talking about expanding and doing other really cool things with it, because there was not an intention of like finding a need in the market and hitting that pain point. It was just, why don't I solve this problem for myself and then let it organically unfold on its own into whatever it's meant to turn into, which is a really different approach to business,
Yeah, I know the feeling of when you get to like a co-working spot and it's either kind of dark and cold. And when I say cold, I don't necessarily mean it just doesn't
the
feel
energy. Yeah,
the energy. Yeah, and it's strange because I spent most of my adult life in the corporate world. I worked in cubicles. I had an office at one point when I was middle management, and when I started going to some co-working spaces, not all, when I started going to some of them, I felt like, well, shit, I'm just paying to be back in the same way I felt in my cubicle, and I didn't. And sometimes there's like little microcosms of groups that get together. Like I was in Bali for a while. There's some really nice co-working spots there, but they're just so overbaked. Like they're almost trying too hard. And then even within there, nobody's talking to each other. Now, I'm not saying it's a miserable place to work. It's just you don't have that sense of community.
You go into an office. This is what we learned. You're coming to a house, somebody's home, right? So think about when you go to somebody's like I went to Sean Narenga's house party, right? Like when you go to somebody's house, you're in a different space. You like maybe bring a gift as like we're taught, and you're more, I don't know, your guard can drop. You can be more yourself.
You feel more love too.
Yes.
Kind of forces interaction too with other people, because you don't want to go to somebody's house for whatever it is and just sit in the corner by yourself with your headphones
right?
on,
But you can do that at a co-working space. You can just go and like check out. You could be an introverted person and go to a co-working space and never talk to another soul. But if you go to one of our conscious co-workings and you're at somebody's house, now you are around a bunch of other people. You kind of are obligated to talk to people, which actually what I've learned too is that people that are the most introverted who come, they're the happiest at the end because it gets them out of their shell. They actually crave that more than anything.
It fills up that social cup that they usually don't get because they're
Yeah.
introverted, right? So if
Yeah.
they're an introvert, introverts usually like to go where other introverts go because it's their comfort zone. They want to be in a place that's isolated, quiet, no one talks to. So when they try and they step out of their shell and they go to someone new or something new, like the conscious co-working events in a house, like I said, they're obligated to talk, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is what human interaction is like. This
Not
is
even just
what,
obligated though, but it's a group of people that want to talk to that person.
yeah,
So it's not like a huge networking thing where there's 50 people and it's 7 drinks or whatever. It's like intentionally architected as intimate and curated in a way. And I personally, in the beginning, and still do when I'm hosting, is like make sure I'm connecting people. When somebody says, hey, I'm into this thing or I'm into that thing, and then boom, like I want to make sure that these people, and then all of a sudden they like, wow, it creates like a bond that they, in that curated sense.
yeah. Well, I mean, just to give an example, I'm sure we can say his name on here, but Seth. Like, I mean, when Seth first came to your event at your house when it was back in Playa Car, he had this great idea in his business that he wanted to start doing and hosting, men's circle group and stuff like that. And he just never had like the initiative to really start it and was always pondering. One day at this event, and he's like, he got all the feedback he needed, he got all the reinforcement he wanted, he knew his mission, his directive, and he started like that week. I think like he started his business that week just because of being around people that were like,
and he
this is
made
amazing.
friends.
And he
He
made
had
friends.
just moved to Mexico with his wife and kids. So when his wife and kid was in the hospital 2-3 weeks ago or whatever, he had friends that could help him out. All of those friends he met at the Conscious Coworking,
Yeah. Yeah. It's curing loneliness. Sorry, I think Justin's going to say something too, but yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and how does this figure? Like, I know you guys are building this now, but how does this? What's the outlook on other locations? Are you do you go into, like, do you still go to co-working places? I mean, I know some of this is going to be online and everything else. Is the idea to keep it intimate and keep it, like, for lack of a better explanation, like in somebody's home, or is this something that you can also bring to the co-working spaces? Like, how's the model look if we were to break down like how it functions?
Something we're still working through the specifics, truthfully, Lee, but the thought is kind of a membership club type situation, like Soho House. But Soho House is very exclusive and very, kind of like posh, let's call it, and unwelcoming. And we want anybody who's conscious, right? And that can mean a lot of things. A lot of things actually, and not so exclusive or like exclusionary. Let's call it, right, but inclusionary is what we want it to be. And I think the thought is we either have a nice luxury home in different physical locations around the world, like the top 10 remote worker hubs, let's say, like for example Playa in Mexico City and Medellin, Los Angeles or London or Istanbul, these kinds of places, or some kind of like mixed use real estate that's in the center of the city that has kind of this membership club-esque feel that feels like a home on the inside. So it doesn't feel like a co-working place. There still would be areas to work and to take phone calls or to maybe have a podcast studio that you could use. So a lot of the things like a co-working space would have, but in a like home format, right? So it doesn't feel so like co-worky.
Yeah, couches and maybe like a kitchen.
Yeah, like a lounge. There's this really famous place. Yeah, like a lounge. There's a famous place in San Francisco called Shack 15, which is really well known in the Bay Area, which kind of has that same vibe. It's just like where entrepreneurs go to chill out and they work, and less of a co-working environment. It is co-working ultimately, but they have events and they have like couches and lounges and just kind of more of like a members club for conscious entrepreneurs, and again, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but ultimately I think the mission is to cure loneliness while also helping people build a tribe at the same time, and level up. That's the main, what I see too, is just like people at, just you guys too, like you're doing a podcast because you want to level up ultimately, like you want to either make more money through business or be more visible or learn more or be of service more or whatever that measurement is for you. Like we all share a similar core value, which is we want to grow personally and professionally and spiritually and emotionally and physically and financially and all these things. And I think this community, all of the people share that same value of they want to grow.
right now we're just hoping to not get canceled. So that's where the bar is right now. So keep it there. I'll worry about growing and everything and the money later. But yeah, no, that's and especially now with Airbnb, you could almost pop these up.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have to be.
Yeah,
I mean, I know it's ideally
we've
you
thought
have a
about
place,
it.
but
Yeah, we've had some like an cool opportunity in Medellin that came about to do it there, which we ended up passing on a really fancy place that was that kind of situation. But it's something like we're finalizing with the business model right now is like there's something to be said about having a consistent location that people know they can go to, you know? Like, and especially think about Lee, like you're traveling around to Bali and you could always go to Conscious House for something you need, right? If you're in a pinch or if you want to meet some people or you want to, I don't go to some event, or maybe it has a few rooms to rent if you're between Airbnbs or something like that. That's one of the elements that is missing when we're traveling around, right? Is like you don't have a home base. You have your Airbnb or your rental that you get, but like home, like your place in Detroit, if you have a home there, I don't know, but like where you feel safe and you know people. And if you have an issue, you can go there. Or if you have something exciting to share, you can go there. Or you know where the coffee shop is around the corner that makes it in a certain temperature that exactly the way that you like it. That's what makes it feel like home. And in my opinion, that's what's missing for like these remote, workers. Because that's what was missing for me. I wasn't happy in Playa until I had a home.
Yeah.
And I was van lifing before that, which was awesome. I love, but I was definitely not having a home situation when you're traveling around on a van or renting Airbnbs and, like transient, whatever, which would have been before it was vagabonds. Remember that? You're probably a little, I don't know your age, but I can tell you're a little older. It was like vagabonds, which was a bad connotation. And then it got turned into digital nomads, which is like, whatever that is. I don't even know anymore.
I forget that Rolf guy who wrote the vagabonding book. I know what you're talking about though, but yeah, it used to be like, oh, you ride around on a train all day and like living
with the guitar, getting kicked off trains or living in a van down by the river, like the Chris Farley thing, which the SNL skit, which was always like such a bad, but that's what everybody wants now. Is that like everybody's desiring that?
Yeah, it is hard to be a transient to hit on your point there. There's a lot of places I've co-worked and everything else where you just meet people in passing and everybody may be wonderful, but they're not necessarily people that I would call if I had a problem. So there's still that missing connection, which is what you guys are getting at, is you don't really like everybody's pleasant, polite, whatever, but you don't get close enough to, if I end up in their city again, that I feel comfortable calling if I needed something, or vice versa, So I think that's a huge problem, obviously, and you're addressing it now.
Yeah, I think also a way to look at it is like we want to set up like embassies for conscious people that are all around the world. We want to create a safe haven in every major city where tourists and nomads go to work and stuff like that. And the nice part too is that I did a lot of traveling, and every coffee shop I went to, every co-working place I went to had a different vibe, a different feeling, different group of people. So maybe I found like a co-working spot that had similar interests and feel with people that I was. So if we were able to keep, we want to create a brand and like an establishment that no matter which one you go to, it's on key and on part of the same branding, the same type of people
like
are going to be there.
When you go to Starbucks, you know what kind of coffee you're going to get. When you go to Jimmy John's, you know what kind of sandwich. You go to McDonald's, there's consistency, and that consistency,
that's what we want.
I feel like it brings us down to homeostasis. It's like it's a safe thing, even though it might not be the best. Like Chipotle burritos. I fucking love Chipotle burritos, right? Might not be the best thing in the world. Might not even be the healthiest they say they are, but probably not. But it's consistent, Like Oxos suck, but they're consistent. They're consistent that they suck, but they're consistent.
Their service is consistent.
It's still consistent.
Everywhere you go, there's 5 of them working, 5 of them behind the desk, 1 actually working in a line of 20 people. And the crazy part is no one even cares. Everyone's just sitting in line. No one cares. When I first got here, I'm like, oh my God, like if this was in Canada, people would get fired.
Right? But it's consistent. It's consistent. You know that you can go to OXXO to get your Coke or your coffee or your cigarettes or whatever, and the service is going to be shitty, but you get served and you can go there.
Absolutely.
It's like the branding thing.
Well, I mean, I'm really happy to be a part of what we're doing and creating this conscious coworking thing. And I think it's a movement that's catching. I mean, like I said, we have over 800 and something members and all 4 different groups that we have. So you have a couple different hosts and we have the one in Medellin. So the expansion is already there. I'm excited for it. What would be like a good strategy or a good tip that you would, tell our 31 subscribers and soon to be more, of course, but what would be a good strategy that you want to teach people?
31 can't be wrong. 31 people can't be wrong. God damn it.
Yeah.
I love it. Everything starts somewhere, man. That's great. That's 31 more people than I have because I don't even have a podcast.
Woo, so you're, Lee, we're better than someone.
Hey, fuck it. Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah.
What would be a good strategy for business and entrepreneuring and something that you said, you've won a lot and you've lost a lot? What would be a good strategy to help you more consistent or just anything in general?
Yeah, I was like, Jesus, that's a tough one, man. That's a hard question.
I did pre-warn him. I said that we'd be asking this question.
Yeah, it's a big topic. I mean, listen, from my experience and my journey, I was a young entrepreneur who had a big hole inside of himself that was trying to fill that with success and money and fame and workaholism and convincing myself that if I did this, my life would be better. And ultimately, I had to learn the hard way that none of that shit mattered. That if I actually tune into myself and my heart and what I really want to do, even if that's contrary to popular belief, listening to my heart instead of my mind and trusting my intuition in business, right or wrong. Like, I think we all have this inner guidance system, that is often overlooked for many reasons, like other people are telling us they think we should do something, or our ego is telling us it thinks we should do something, or our family or responsibilities tell us that we should do something, and all of which are relevant and should be listened to, right? But that doesn't mean that should be the ultimate decision. And the old me would, because I didn't have a strong enough internal who I was, really, I would listen to those things more, versus that was that spiritual awakening for me, was that I went down this path of finding out who Matt is, really. Not Matt, entrepreneur Matt who made millions of dollars Matt who was in Entrepreneur Magazine or had a tech company or failed and went bankrupt or any of these other things. Not that Matt, but the real Matt. And once I discovered that, then I took that into the direction of where I thought really I should be going, which led me to really fascinating things like Conscious Coworking and like meeting Sean and now you, Lee, and it was not something that at the time I was so fucking blind to that, like, cause we're just busy with life and all the stresses of everything, money and time and all these things, that was this, like, me doing the van life thing and then moving to Mexico really was an exercise of self-love and finding myself, and actually I realized why they say like a 40-year-old or the midlife crisis, it's like it was around 38, 39. I'll be 42 in a couple weeks, so the last 4 years has really been like discovering myself.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. And there's a lot of shadows and dark shit and gnarly stuff and hard things that I've had to deal with and still deal with, but it's more fulfilling, and I can viscerally see and feel the impact I'm having on people's lives now in a good way, in a really awesome way. And that is rewarding, personally, to be able to, that for me fills my cup, and I'm no longer driven by filling my bank account, if I can fill my cup of giving to others and seeing them be joyous and happy and thriving, for me that's awesome. And if the other stuff comes, great. I'm not going to turn that away. I like nice things too, but
Yeah.
it's like a different guidance operating system, like a jet has one kind of guidance system, and I like upgraded to a different kind of guidance system.
It's weird because we all wish we'd found these things beforehand. So similar to you, I didn't really know who I was until I'm 44. I didn't know who I was until I was about 37 or 38. There's no shortcuts, right? So I think like you had to be in a certain place and you had to go through certain things to get to be able to how you feel now and how you're able to do things now. Because I feel the same way about myself. I'm like, if I had all the success when I was young and everything else, I'd be the same guy, so it's weird. Like, we want to get to these things sooner. I mean, maybe psychedelics would help if everybody could do that when we were younger.
I think so. I think it would accelerate.
I think so too. But yeah, no, I know what you mean. Had me at my age now tried to lecture 25-year-old me like on the stuff we're talking about now, well, I would have been like, sure. I would
whatever,
have
douchebag. Fuck off. I know what I'm doing. You're such a tool, whatever.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So you almost have to be, things have to line up. Like, it has to happen, but you also have to be ready to receive that,
And also, I think, at least for me specifically, like, it took me a long time to figure out that my path is my own unique path. And it's not right and it's not wrong. It's just my path, you know? And I think, especially as men, too, North American men, you know, there's this consumerism, you know, like status and money and women and all the things that equate to success, you know. And if we don't hit those certain things, like that, it would trigger an inadequacy, or we're not good enough, or whatever else. But I really had to realize, like, my path is not right or wrong, even though it's been different and gnarly and very unique and big and exciting and fun and lots of blood, sweat, and tears on it. It's been my path, you know? And just like you're saying, Lee, like, that was your path to get you to where you are. And looking at it today, you probably wouldn't trade it for anything, because it brought you to exactly where you are in this moment, having this exact conversation, and to be able to have this exact conversation. At the time, when the shit happens, we're like, fuck my life. This sucks.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, the whole why me,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
The amount of times I've gone through breakups or heartaches and think that my life is over. I'll never find someone else again. It's like, what the fuck am I thinking? Of course you will. Of course you will. And it's, yeah,
But
I
that's
agree.
where I think psychedelics helps you decouple those things, right?
Yeah.
Because you can see that, like, this is a human experience, and then there's this whole other, like, matrix spiritual experience happening too. And so
Yeah.
when you have those hard times before psychedelics, they're hard times and they're just hard times. But when you have hard times after psychedelics or while you're doing them, and or look retrospectively at those hard times, you see it through a totally different lens, you know?
Yeah.
A lens of, like, maybe I'm here to learn these things and take those feelings of heartache into whatever collective consciousness is out there, you know?
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
I think,
Or maybe I'm nothing and I'm just here to do nothing. And that's okay
yeah.
too, you know? It's just like, whatever it is your definition of that is, it's like completely different.
And I think one of the biggest things that I got from my, like, spiritual awakening with, doing some ayahuasca and DMT and that kind of stuff is I learned to not become attached to the outcome. Where before, like, when I got into a relationship, for example, I was attached to the outcome. Like, if we were meant to be together, and if we broke up, that outcome that I was dreaming and fantasizing about would cripple me. Same with a business or a project or a client. I was attached to the outcome of getting that client. I was attached to the outcome of getting that project. I was attached to so many different things. And through the spiritual awakening that I've gone through, I realized that, like, whatever outcome that happens is the outcome that was meant to happen. So therefore, I detach myself from that. So therefore, if a client doesn't pay their invoice, client drops off, I end up breaking up with my partner, I'm sure I'll be upset and I'll have to go through some things and work through it. And I'm not like a robot being like, oh, we broke up. Oh, well, on to the next thing. You're going to go through the process, but it's not going to be as crippling because you're not attached to that outcome. It was the biggest
Do you know
thing.
why that is?
Why?
Because you're present, you know? That's the like future tripping or in the past, you know? That doesn't exist in this threesome moment we're having right here. You know, it was on this podcast. This is all there is, right? And, like, I think that's where psychedelic and plant medicine specifically help you learn about everything exists in the moment, really, at a multidimensional level. And yes, that other shit exists in our RAM, in our brain, and in reality, maybe in other people's brains and things too. But ultimately, like, we have this simulation that's happening right now. You know, why not enjoy the fuck out of it right now?
I love it. Well, I think that's probably a great place to end the podcast. We're about the 45-minute mark. Live in the fucking moment, everybody.
Love
I
it.
love it. Justin, you have anything you want to add on to that? Live in the moment.
I'm with you on the whole, we're all our own beings, but we're also, I do believe we're part of something higher. And I'm not a religious person whatsoever, but that doesn't mean that there's not something going on. And I think, like, you're right, psychedelics kind of unlocks that for people in the sense that, another human being is just me in another brain and body, and once we get to the point where we can realize that we're not our own we're not our own little units.
There you go. That we're all connected, right? Versus we're individuals versus the individuals of a collective. Your whole life experience completely changes from that.
Yeah, for anybody who hasn't done psychedelics, of course, we're not physicians or anything like that, but I really do hope it gets prominent enough in society that it's available to everybody. Because, hey, just if you do it and you don't like it, whatever. I mean, all the other shit we put in our bodies. Why not try something that could help? So yeah, but it was nice meeting you, man. I'm excited to see where you guys take this conscious
Yeah,
co-working thing,
good to
and
meet you,
I'll
man.
jump in and help when I can. This is
Good.
good shit. This is a good
Yeah.
time to end because the
Any
sun's
friend
creeping
of
up on me
John's
here.
is a friend of mine, so that's great.
Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
awesome. Thanks
Likewise,
so
man.
much, man. I appreciate it. And for those of you
All right,
who are
guys.
watching, please subscribe to our channel, and we appreciate the follow. And thanks again. Thanks for watching.
All right.
Forgetting about that part. All right, to be continued, guys.
See you guys. Ciao.
Hold on.